I'm Jon Young. I've been coming to Abundant Life for about 2 years. I like to think I've known Jesus for most of my life, although it's more of maybe I would say a cultural thing or a thing where you're raised with a family who believes in God. But I wouldn't call it active. I wouldn't call it intentional, and I might say that I believed, but I didn't follow, would maybe be a way of putting it. In my adult life, I found my way into addiction and spent a lot of time there and a lot of dark time there. And all that time, I would have said I believed in God. But it was never a priority. It was never a path out. It was just a thing over here. And then, by the grace of God, I was able to get sober. But even then, that was a practical difference in my life, and an important practical difference in my life. But it wasn't until the last couple of years that I really started to come to Jesus and have some orientation in faith and in God, and that has given me some spiritual direction, but also a way of prioritizing my life that has helped it develop some structure, and that has been very significant as I've developed my relationship with Jesus. I think the most significant way that I came to be in a relationship with Jesus in a meaningful way was during the time of my wife and my separation. She began to come to Abundant Life, and I didn't really. It was her thing, and she came with the kids, and I was just sort of, observed from the side, and they all got baptized actually during that time. And as Wendy and I began to reconcile, I started to come with them to church, and it wasn't that I was jumping into my faith walk with both feet and saying I'm going to come to Jesus. It was more, I had been separated from my family. I wanted to start doing things with my family. This was a positive thing, but I was here, and that presence opened my mind, and it opened my eyes, and it caused me to think, and it caused me to want to know God and want to have a relationship with Jesus. And one of those times when Pastor John says, let me see those hands, and I was one of those people. And even though, like I said, I would have said I knew Jesus, I didn't really. And it was then that I began to really develop a relationship with God and prioritize a relationship with God through coming with my family. It was a moment of inspiration. All my life, I wasn't baptized. And it kind of sat in the back of my head. It wasn't something that kept me up at night, but I knew it, and actually, anytime I was doing something, I can remember a time when I was in high school, I went rappelling, and I can remember being like, oh my gosh, if you die, you're not bad. Like, I would have that awareness. And there was always, I wasn't a member of a church ever before coming here. It was something that I knew I should do, something that I had a desire to do, but it wasn't ever anything I was in a position to do. It wasn't a priority to do. And so it was last Easter, not this last Easter, but the Easter before that. Wendy and the boys had already been baptized. I had been in my head, but I'd made no plans. I hadn't gone through the growth track. I was, sort of still a passenger, but more with an open mind. And I walked in the door, didn't say anything to anybody, went right back to Info Central and said, can I do it? Can I do it today? And I don't know, Jesus put that on my heart, and it wasn't a question, it was a conviction, I guess. And I just asked what I needed to do, and I just got right in line. And it was almost like I was waiting for an invitation, or, oh no, I have to be in this place, or I have to be really ready for this thing. And I think, I don't know, maybe that was an immature way of looking at it. But in that moment, it felt absolutely ridiculous, like beyond comprehension to not do it. Why wouldn't I do it? And so I sat right there with I did get the clothes they had, And I just, through total inspiration, did it right there on the spot last Easter. I guess a version of what I just said. Why? I mean, you have to swing your foot over to one side or the other. If you're sitting on that fence row, you have to throw a leg over. And why? Well, why not? You're here. You believe. There's no downside to giving your life to Jesus. There's no downside to taking that walk. There's no downside to learning. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to wait for an invitation. You don't have to be in the right spot. You're here. You're saying, should I get baptized? You're in the right spot. That's where you're supposed to be. And I think I spent, I was 40 years old or 41 years old before it felt like I should do it. And it wasn't anything I did, right? I didn't do anything to get ready for it. I was called to it. And in that moment, all of the whole lifetime spent sort of worried about it, thinking about it, and it being in the back of my head felt totally ridiculous. There's no reason to wait. If you're here, you're wondering, you're called to do it. That's what your heart wants. It's what Jesus wants. Do it. There's no reason not to do it. One of the things I said during my testimony when I came up here was just specifically to men. I think a lot of men come to church because their wives bring them to church. And I did that too. And I think making the choice to be here because you can get something out of it. Your life can change because of the decision to walk with Jesus. I think at my age, a lot of men come to church just because it's what your family does on Sunday. And it's not that that's a terrible thing, but in the short time now that I have had my own conviction to come to church and want to be in church and want to read the Bible and want to expand my relationship with God, I mean, that has made all the difference in my life. And so I think, not just for men, but for anybody who's just going through the motions, I mean, we spend so much of our life going through the motions with everything. Or, some of us go through the motions with kids, some of us go through the motion with work, with family, whatever. It's easy to do that. It's easy to do that with church too. It's difficult to be conscious of the walk with Jesus all the time. But I think baptism especially can be a barrier to people like, oh, I'm not even baptized, right? And I guess maybe for me that was true also. Do it. There's no reason for that to be a barrier. And I think challenging people to jump into that with conviction, for me, has made a big difference. And being baptized was like a gate for that. I don't think it was actually a gate, but in my own mind, it was like, you're not even serious. You're not even baptized. But deciding to do that has, in my own mind, made me, I don't know, legitimate or something in my relationship with Jesus. And I think the more people consciously think about, why am I here? What am I doing? What is my purpose? What does God want from me? What is God's will? I think trying to think of things that way has made a big difference for me as a Christian versus go to church on Sunday, pray when, you get pulled over or in those moments of need, rather than making prayer a part of your daily life, having gratitude, church being a focal point in your life and not just this appendage that happens between 10 and 11 on Sundays. I guess that may not be exactly in line with the message with baptism, but I think it's important for people to have intention when they come here, when they're in the space here, but also in their own lives. I think we're all guilty of not staying focused all the time, and then we're human, that we're going to do that. But to have the intention is really important for me, and I think getting baptized in a way set that intention, right? This is for real now, and it almost challenges me to try to live up to it, and of course falling short, but having that intention for me is very important.